George Floyd Jr., known affectionately to his loved ones as Perry, born October 14th, 1973, in Fayetteville, North Carolina, died May 25th, 2020, age 46, in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He was the victim of police brutality. He was unjustly arrested for a crime that he may or may not have committed, but still didn't justify what happened to him. A beloved father of 5 and a beloved member of his community. And so, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Cleaning Out My Closet podcast. And as you can tell, this is going to be a very serious episode. We're going to be discussing the George Floyd murder, because it is a murder.
No, it's definitely a murder.
Let's be clear about that. I mean, regardless of what happens with the case, he was murdered. He was killed. I think people are going to, walk around and be like, well, it's a homicide of this degree. It's this kind of thing. He was killed by a person.
Unjustly.
He was unjustly killed. And it wasn't just a person. It was a police officer, a person who was supposed to serve and protect the community and the people who are, upholding the law. That's their job. And he was killed by a person who was a police officer, is a police officer. And that's what this episode's going to be about. We're going to be discussing the George Floyd situation, his untimely and unjust death, the protests that have arose because of his death and many others that the system has failed to protect, and the riots as well that have basically arisen from both of those two issues.
Yeah. So, we're just discussing, like he said, the initial just terrible thing that happened to this man, and then the results of the unjust murder of this man.
And we've each got different talking points and things that we want to discuss, but I think mostly what we want to do here is have just an open conversation and not necessarily adhere to a specific list of things, you know what I mean, but mostly just have bullets so that we can memorize exactly where we want to go with something that we might have heard or thought of, because this has been ongoing for at least, a few weeks now.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of things that have kind of unraveled since the initial murder of George Floyd.
So, if I'm correct on this, George Floyd was killed. He was initially arrested for being accused of using counterfeit bills to buy something, and
it was like a $20 counterfeit, supposedly.
Which is just like, I've worked as a clerk for a gas station before, and I've encountered people with counterfeit bills before.
Yeah, you give them the money back and say it's no good.
Some stores will say you can't give the money back.
Oh, okay.
Some stores will say you have to mark it, and then you take it and you do not return it. If they have an issue, you call the police. Then the police handle it. In any of those circumstances, people usually leave. They don't bother letting it get that big. But here's the thing. Some people don't know. I would say most people don't know that the bills that they're using are counterfeit, if they are indeed counterfeit. Sometimes you're walking around, like, imagine how pissed off you would be, right? If someone just took like a $20, $50, $100 bill from you or something like that, and you thought it was a real fucking dollar, and then you're just thinking that they're trying to fucking stiff you.
Right.
So it's totally fucked in that situation, and I understand that. But you have to say, hey, it is what it is. Sometimes you give the fucking money back because you don't want to deal with any problems. And you say, just go to a different gas station, man. Sorry, but I'm just, I don't want to lose my job just because of this shit,
Right, but no one should lose their life over this shit either.
But the fact that the cop, and apparently the cop had a past with him, they had worked as security guards together in a club.
For like 17 years is what I was saying. Yeah, they were both bouncers at a club.
So apparently they had some type of heated history. You know what I mean?
That's the only thing. I mean, it just does not make sense. How could anyone do the thing that he did? Especially, if you know someone, you've worked with them for 17 years, you're going to know this person.
Right.
It's not like they worked together one weekend.
Well, even if they hated each other, he would have known him enough.
Exactly. 17 years, that's a long fucking time.
Well, regardless of whether or not this man's intention was to kill George Floyd, the end result is the same. He killed him. And all the officers that stood by and allowed it to happen are accomplices in his death. And they should be held accountable, just like this officer should be held accountable for his actions too. So to say that he had some type of malicious intent, I think that's going to be where the the cases where people are going to start deferring between, you know, is it murder, is it homicide in the first degree
Right.
stuff, is it manslaughter? They're going to be like, well, can you prove that there was malicious intent? I think the thing that has really rung so true for everybody involved in this is that it seems to keep abiding by a history of negligence and abuse towards specifically not just minorities but black people
Right.
specifically, perpetuated by the police of this country and the justice system in general. I think, and that's what's an indication to a lot of people that he was clearly malicious in his intent. You know, I can't say that he was because I don't necessarily think he was trying to kill the guy, but he fucking killed him.
No, I mean,
He
yeah, like you
killed
said,
him.
it
So
doesn't matter. The
if
end
he
result was what it is.
like, I understand if he may even be regretful. Not, I don't know if he is or not. He may fucking not be. He may be regretful, but he should definitely serve the maximum sentence for the crime he fucking certainly committed. I mean, and it's ridiculous that we still have this system that will still protect these fucking people, these cops that want to protect each other, you know what I mean? And it really goes to show you that, like, you can build a culture within anything, you know what I mean? Any type of structure or a system or anything like that. You can build a brotherhood. You know, it's the same idea of like the people you work with.
Yeah, you got that
Like, you have a camaraderie.
yeah,
with them, but
exactly.
it's different when you're like in the shit with somebody, you know, like in
and
a
that's,
war zone.
That's yeah, so that's the thing too, especially that, you know, people also don't take in consideration when it comes to, you know, the police, especially in, you know, these bigger cities where there's a lot of crime, a lot of violence.
Yeah.
You know, every time they're pulling someone over or doing anything like that, they don't know who that person is.
Yeah.
And there's, you know, people already do not like cops to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, as a cop, you know, if I was a cop and every single time I pulled someone over, I'm thinking, shit, is this guy going to try to kill me?
Yeah.
I'd be kind of like on the...
That's why I wouldn't want to be a
I
fucking cop.
could never do it.
I would be too fucking scared. Like, I'd probably, every time something scared me, I'd put my hand on my fucking, like, sidearm.
And the
you know
thing
what I
is,
mean?
I feel like with the cops, and I know a lot of people have brought this up, is I feel the best way to kind of get away from some of these, you know, incidents and these terrible things happening
Yeah.
is making it harder to be a cop, where you need to go through like schooling, basically. Because I don't know what the exact hours is that you need to be a cop, but it's not that much.
No, it's definitely not nearly enough as what it should be. If you're
Right.
giving people like, if you tell them you're literally the one who's going to be protecting, serving, watching over this area, enforcing the actual law of this country, state, town, whatever, it's not nearly enough. I mean, if you think about like how much time and school and stuff that a fucking lawyer or a judge has to put in to do
Right.
that and fucking uphold the law on their end and know the law and fight for the law, then it's not nearly enough when you think of like a doctor or something like that.
Right, where they got
They
8+
have
years.
people who have their lives on the line as well, doctors. So why aren't we taking as much consideration with police? Because you look at other countries who have police that have to work years to actually get out in the field. I think it's, what is it? It's like Switzerland or Sweden or something.
Yeah, I think they
like
got
Where
it's
it's like-
almost
it's
you
like-
have to be like in the military first or something like that and have X amount of years of experience.
We're not speaking specifics here.
Yeah,
We're not being
just in
specific
just
about
in
this.
general.
I mean, obviously you can look up, guys, whatever you want to and see, but there are definitely countries that take this job much more seriously than America apparently does, because the life here isn't valued the same way, specifically minority life and especially black people. It's not valued nearly as much as, let's say, white people. I think generally speaking, not to speak in like this super sweeping broad motion or anything like that, but I think a lot of the issues with what's going on right now is that we can observe and see that black lives don't seem to matter as much
as white or
As
as
white.
other, you know, other races.
I mean,
other,
if you literally built a hierarchy and you wrote it down on paper, you would definitely put white lives at the top and you would put black lives at the bottom. Not to say that one is better than the other, but
and see
the
that's
way that they're
that's what
looked
the
at.
issue is. Yeah,
Yeah.
one is not better than the other, but the fact that that's what it is sometimes.
Yeah.
And I mean, it just needs to stop at this point. I mean, I hope, sadly, this had to happen for, you know, to be the whole world to wake up almost, and it shouldn't be that way. That's the issue.
It seems like there's always some great tragedy that quote unquote has to
Mm-hmm.
happen for people to open their fucking eyes to things that have been issues for
But
so fucking long. Like it's just a system that we can see with the whole pandemic going on and now this on top of it. It should be the thing that opens so many people's eyes to all of the glaring flaws in these policies and systems that we put so much faith into that are going to keep us safe, protect us, and make sure that everything stays functioning. But that's not the case. And this should have been the thing. These two things should be the things that could bring people on either sides of whatever arguments together to say, yeah, let's look for a better solution. But it's always never that simple because people are so fucking in their own bullshit. They don't want to open their eyes to what's really going on.
no, and that's what we kind of discussed that earlier. What the major issue is it's either you're one side or the other, and we kind of were talking about it's not that simple. It's
Yeah.
I've seen many posts and many just things on social media where people are saying if you're not 100% with us on all these things then don't be with us.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's just kind of
It
separating
closes the
us.
conversation.
Yeah,
it ends the conversation. A conversation can't be held in a situation like that, where it's like if you don't agree with 100% of all of the points I'm making in this post or whatever I say, then you're
wrong. You're not with us.
You're this kind of person. You're that kind of person. You're definitely not an ally to this cause or that cause. And I think that's one of the things that infuriates me the most about this is that the way people look at allies, like quote unquote allies, is so frustrating because there's this idea that you have to agree with someone on everything to ally to a specific cause. So let's say the main issue is A. That's the main issue. If you don't agree with B, C, and these are much smaller issues that are inconsequential compared to what A is.
It's the branches
you
off
won't
of
be
the.
considered an ally, and then what you have to say and what you could contribute to the conversation or
It's
to
void.
the cause
It's nothing.
itself, because you could contribute to the actual cause. You could bring people to who also contribute to the cause, is deemed unnecessary and it's unworthy of the cause itself. You're not a true ally. You're not someone who really wants to champion for this thing. It's never that simple because the world isn't black and white. You know what I mean? The
Right.
whole point of like friendships and stuff like that is that you guys might not agree on everything, like the people you're friends with, but you agree on the important stuff. Like obviously, if me and you could agree that we loved all the same movies, read every fucking comic book the same, all of our music artists loved them all the same, everything. If we were the same fucking person,
It'd be so
but
boring.
you came to me and you were like, yeah, I'm just not really feeling black people. You know what I mean?
That would
I'd
be a
like,
big issue.
That's a big problem.
Right.
That's a big, but if it's reverse, like I could still see myself being like, he's an okay guy, even though I'm like, he kind of has bad taste in music. I don't really fuck with any of the stuff he likes. You know what I mean? But
as a person, he's all right.
yeah, I'm never like you wouldn't be. It wouldn't be like, oh, this is the guy that I don't want championing for this fucking cause. You know what I mean? It's insane. It's like such a childish mentality where I've seen posts like that where and it frustrates me.
You know, it is frustrating. And then also we have a mutual friend that we were talking to, and they were saying, he was so conflicted on what to do because he didn't know, because he's a white male, so he doesn't know the struggles. He sees it's wrong, but he doesn't know the struggles.
Right.
So he's like, do I post anything? And then he sees these posts where people are saying, if you don't post anything, you're just as bad.
Yeah.
So he's like, what do I do? Like, I don't want to, no matter what he does, he's going to be offending someone.
The shit out of me. I was so upset by that, where people were saying your silence is paramount or not paramount. It's like tantamount to violence. Like silence is the same. Like you're basically being like passively racist or something by not posting anything. I purposefully don't use my social media for things like that. I don't like to champion for specific causes because I don't feel like social media is the place for me to have a constructive conversation
I don't feel
with
like
somebody.
you will have a.
I
You
don't
won't
think
have
I
an
can change anyone's mind but with my opinions, like posting shit on Facebook, and I'm not going to be like, that's some real Karen shit. If you're that kind of person, I feel like you're a Karen. So you shouldn't be going around telling people that like, oh, look, Karen this, Karen that. I mean,
Look in the
if you're
mirror.
trying to change minds and shift opinions and stuff like that on fucking Facebook, what are you doing? You're not having a real conversation. You just want people to agree with you. That's because you're not going to change people's mind because it's fucking Facebook.
And that's the
It's not a
issue
real
with the social
conversation.
media thing is they're rewarded basically. They get the likes, they get the smiley faces and stuff. So I've seen a lot of people. A lady got in trouble and she got fired because she was out during the riots and protest, and she was hammering in a board on the window, and got a quick picture and then left.
Oh my
It was
god.
just for the publicity for her Instagram.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people doing that shit where it's like just taking pictures at the riots and stuff like that, taking pictures holding signs, but then as soon as the camera fucking gets put back in the pocket, they're just like, all right, let's get back in our fucking right
Let's get back in the car.
Cadillac.
Let's go.
We're gone.
Yep.
We got to go back up to the hills. Shit like that, where it's just like
It's ridiculous, and that's the thing is too. Which brings me on to a big thing that I've been seeing is the protesters, the peaceful protesters, and the rioters and the looters.
I wanted to say this one thing
Yeah.
before we move on to that. So don't forget that
Yeah,
point
I
that
got
you're
you.
trying to make. The whole thing about the allies situation that I think is really fucking ridiculous when you think about something like, oh boy.
Apologize about that. We are actually back in the studio, so my little one is running around.
Yeah, when are you gonna get rid of that thing?
I lost the
Turn
receipt.
it into like a puppy mill or something. What's it called? If you think about something like a Saturday morning cartoon, you know what I mean? You know those episodes where they like the group of good guys will team up with the less than great person who's kind of been like an antagonist,
Right.
but like maybe they have the same goal. You know,
Just
they're
approaching it differently.
you know, they don't agree on everything. They don't have the same fucking goals about everything. Maybe this person does things in a way that you don't technically agree with, but ultimately the main goal, the big important thing is that hey, let's stop the really bad guy. Let's get rid of the really bad plan. And they can actually team up with that person, and for the time being, in order to accomplish the goal, you ally with somebody who you don't necessarily agree with on everything. That's the whole point. You would get so many more people allying to your position and championing with you if it wasn't so exclusionary. If you didn't have to be like, if you don't agree on everything, you're just not a part of this and you can't be a
Right.
part of this. It's like, how do you want to get this resolved if you don't want allies?
So yeah,
That's the point.
But yeah, my thing is too. Like I completely agree with that. Like you said, there's the main focus of what happened, and then there's the other stuff that's it's wrong, and the other things that are terrible that are happening, but it's not the main focus right now. We need to get that taken care of.
Yeah, the
but
main focus is, for one thing, this man was fucking killed.
he was murdered
Killed.
on
It is
tape
police
by
brutality.
a
It was
police
negligence
officer.
of the police officer and all the officers involved. And this is a history of this going on within the police, the history of our nation, really.
I mean, the fact now that we have
These are the
cameras
main issues.
on our phone I think is the reason why it's being documented so much more now, which is the sad part. I mean, it's been going on since, like you said, since forever.
You know,
since
we
there's been
talked
police.
about the fucking Rodney King beating
Right,
and stuff like that. We were and the LA riots and stuff. We talked about that like maybe like a week ago or something like that. How it really feels like that is happening again. You know what I mean? But on a much bigger scale.
Oh, yeah, for
It's
sure.
not just the LA riots going on now. There's riots all around the country. I mean, other countries too. I've seen I saw a statue in the UK of like a British slaver from hundreds of years ago that got dragged through the streets and like got dumped into a fucking lake or some shit like that. And I was just like, damn, this is going on everywhere.
No, it's not just
it's-
in one state and not just one country. It's
There are
worldwide.
people rising up in opposition to racism, really, because that's the biggest problem.
And that's
with
what I was
this. Racial
ultimately trying to get
inequality.
to was the fact is we need to realize we know that this is wrong, and like everyone should agree that this is wrong. If you do not agree with that, then you're wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But and then after that, we need to figure things out from there. But if we need to just all agree what happened and what has happened before, the murder of innocent people is
Yeah.
not right.
I think if we can bullet point like the important stuff, you know what I mean? This man was definitely murdered. He was murdered by a cop. The other officers are accomplices in that fucking murder. They should all be held accountable to the full extent of the law for the crimes that they've committed against that man.
100%.
And there needs to be a lot of reform going into moving forward in the future from this point on. There needs to be a shit ton of reform. It needs to be completely up and down, top to bottom, changed up for the police department and just the judicial system in general. You know what I mean? Because there is a lot of racial inequality that goes into the judicial system. Like the law in general just isn't on your side if you're a person of color. It's not set up that way. You know what I mean? Like going back, I mean, it's the whole idea of every man is created equal, but when you're given such a head start at an idea like that, it's not really fair. You know what I mean? Like we set it up so that, okay, we give freedom to slaves and people of color. They're no longer slaves, but they were for a long time, and in some cases still are second class citizens. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So like
They basically were set up for failure from the jump,
right?
And then people expect them, you know, and then when these things happen, they expect, you know, them not to be upset about it,
Yeah,
not do something
There's
about
not supposed to be a fucking people like starting a fucking angry mob and like just pissed off about it.
No,
Just really fucking sad and pissed off about situations.
And they have
like
every
this.
right. I mean, like I said, just watching that video, man, it just it tore me up. I was like, holy shit, like this is happening.
I couldn't
and,
watch all the way through, to be honest
dude,
with you. I was really upset by
no,
it.
it was terrible. Like you just see like there's nothing he can do.
When you
and
start
just,
to really tell that he's passing out, I cut it out because I was just, and then I just skipped to the end of the video because I was like, I don't want to fucking watch this guy
100%.
die, which is so heartbreaking to see that these assholes
just stood there and just let
stood
it happen.
there, let it happen, and this guy thought nothing was wrong with the fact that he was allowing this man to fucking die.
And it wasn't just one other officer. There was what four officers there, including the one that murdered.
I think it's 3 or 4, yeah.
Yeah,
something like that.
And you're telling me no one?
And you can hear the people like, he can't breathe. He said he can't breathe.
And
like,
what are they going to do if they try to help him? They're getting killed. They're getting shot right there. I mean, we just watched that, and I just felt helpless, and it's like I don't even know what I would do in that position.
And that's
it's
just
so
us being, what's it called? I mean, we're both people of color. You know what I mean? I don't like to use that term because it just sounds so weird. And also, I'm like fucking like.
I'm probably the whitest Mexican, but
I get
definitely
mistaken for other shit all the time. You know what I mean? People mistake me for Italian. Fucking when I was a kid, I had really fucking like squinty eyes, so people would think I was Asian, and my family would always joke about me being Chinese and stuff like that. But the only people who seem to know that I'm Hispanic are Hispanic people.
That's always funny though.
When they look at you and they know, they start speaking Spanish to you. That's it. That's the only people who know. Like, when it's like white people, they think I'm a white person. Except in the case of whenever I get pulled over by a cop. Cops somehow immediately know. I think it's the hair and the beard. They just go, yeah, this guy's...
He's not one of us.
He's probably got drugs on him. If he doesn't, I'm going to plant some.
Basically. No, but that's another thing I wanted to talk about was, you know, the difference that we're seeing throughout the United States with these protests, where we have the peaceful protest, and the police are supporting it. They're walking with them. They're taking their body armor off, and they're not seeing the looting like the other places where the cops are basically, you know, doing police brutality on some of these protesters.
Committing crimes. I mean, they're committing. Let's say it for what it is. These police are attacking people. They're not everywhere and not in every circumstance and situation, but you can find actual footage. It's
lot of it,
it's
too.
not hard to find. Just look up any protest. You don't have to look up riots, but there are protests all around the world where there are police who are standing with the protesters, either just silently standing there, standing guard, making sure everything's okay. And then there are also ones where they're protesting with them. You know, they speak towards the crowd. They'll take a microphone. They'll have a sergeant, a captain, a police chief actually speak to the crowd, talk about how they're there to protect the community and that they stand with them in opposition of the crimes that were committed against not just this man, but many others like him. And that's great to see. But then on the flip side of that, you see these fucking piece of shit cops who are committing crimes, attacking protesters and rioters. And let's just speak about the protest though. We'll get into the riot later.
Right, right.
But speaking on the protest, I've seen so many of these people just calmly, silently, and peacefully protesting, just attacked and fucking arrested and beaten by these goddamn cops. And it's fucking ridiculous that it's still an issue. It's still a fucking
And that's
problem
what I
going
was
on.
wanted to talk about is they're protesting for this exact reason, and they are demonstrating that that's it is an issue because they're still doing it, and they know they're on camera. They know that they're being watched.
That's what's crazy,
and that's
about
the
it.
scary. That's what I'm
They
saying.
know they can get away with it because
And
ultimately
they have for the most part.
It's not one person. You know what I mean? You can't point to the crowd and say that's the cop that's doing all of this. It's a system. It's a system that's so entirely set up to protect them and no one else. You know what I mean? Like, have you ever seen that video of the journalist who went undercover to try to file a police report with a department?
I don't think so now.
So he basically, I don't remember what it was that he worked for, what news publication that he worked for. But basically he pretends he's a citizen, which, I mean, he is, but whatever. He goes and he says, hey, I'd like to file a police report. What they're supposed to do is they're supposed to say, okay, and then hand you the fucking paper and then file it. What they do instead is they go, oh, can I get your name? Can you tell me what it was? Who's the officer involved? And then the guy's like, no, I just want to file the report. And I'm like, well, hold on. I need to know, tell me what's going on. Maybe it's not worth filing a report over. And he's like,
if I feel it's worth filing, it's worth filing. That's the way it should be.
That's the way it
But it's
legally
not.
is. If you need to file a report, you should just be able to file a report. They're actively breaking the fucking law. And then they had a swarm of cops come out and kick this guy out of the station because they kept all asking him and dogpiling him, what's the problem? What seems to be the problem? What's the issue? Who do you have a problem with? And then you can't file a report that way.
When was this done? Do you know?
I don't remember. I saw the video not too long ago. It just randomly popped up, recommended for me on YouTube. Probably
That's
with
crazy.
everything that I've been watching. That's
No,
probably
for
why.
sure. Well, and then the thing is too, though, when it comes to the police, and we've seen it during the protest and all that, is there are a lot of police that are doing things. Like I saw several videos where some of the police were basically attacking these protesters, and some cops were like coming in, like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
There was a couple videos I seen where cops were doing what they did to George Floyd, had the knee over the neck thing, and a cop came over and just pushed him off, like, get the fuck off. Like, do you not understand what the hell? Like, just blows my mind. Like I said, they're being filmed. They know they're being watched.
Yeah.
The protest
But
is because of this exact reason,
know
and
they're
yet they're still
protected.
doing it.
Because they look out for each other. Like we said earlier.
That's the issue.
It's like we said,
That can, the brotherhood.
They start a brotherhood. Yeah, exactly. Which is why they have that whole motto of Blue Lives Matter. And, like, not to say, like, they don't or anything like that, but that's not the fucking point that's trying to be made right now.
Right.
Because
they're not the ones that are being
you're not under
targeted
distress.
or
you're not
murdered.
the ones who are fucking, like, on the chopping block right now. Systemically, you're not
Right.
the ones who are having to deal with these issues. You know what I mean? You're the ones in power, the ones that should be protecting these people. So that's the issue right there. Anyone who goes around saying shit like, we should kill all cops and stuff like that, you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Like I was saying, it's not, you can't group it. It's unfortunate
There's
that
no
we
way
do
to generalize all these people together.
But a lot of people, but some people do that.
Yeah, of
and
course.
it is an issue.
It's the same thing as people who, when Trump had his whole rhetoric about, like, Mexicans, like when Mexican people are sending their people over, they're sending over rapists and murderers and stuff like that. That's a dumb statement to make. It's just dumb and factually incorrect.
Right.
Sure, there might be, like, a large portion of that community that does commit some of those things.
I say you get any
but you
large.
still can't generalize. It doesn't make any fucking sense because it's still wrong factually. You could say statistically, you might be right statistically, but factually you're still wrong because you're still just generalizing this whole fucking group. You might be able to say a large portion, all right, but still that doesn't mean that these people should be under distress of their own lives being taken away from them, especially if you're not committing these things. You know what I mean? Like if you
because there's one. It's like there's one bad apple and the whole fucking bunch is ruined.
Yeah,
is basically what the mentality is with this.
Well, these fucking guys protect themselves. The system is just so set up for them. Like cops Like that's that thing I was just telling you. They wouldn't let this person file a police report.
That's so
What does
fucking
that tell you?
crazy.
If you want to go file a fucking police report, are you even? Let's say that the guy heard him out. He wrote everything down. Are you supposed to trust that that cop is going to fucking file anything? No, you should just be able to file it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Drop it into a fucking lockbox or something like that, and then you should know that that is going to securely be delivered to somebody that's going to handle the situation. But you don't. We don't have that luxury in this company, and it's not an issue just with black people. It just affects black people the most
Right, right.
because police protect themselves against
Well, I mean, yeah,
everyone who tries to come after one of them. They all form a little bubble to try and protect that one person. You know, the system is set up so that cops want to protect cops, whether they're corrupt, dirty, whether what they're doing is right or wrong. They have that fucking mentality, and it's like, okay, well, you're supposed to be protecting us.
And the thing is, too, an argument that people say is like they don't want to listen to
Yeah.
the cops that aren't corrupt or aren't terrible people like this. The ones that are good, they can't say anything.
Yeah.
So you're telling, if with that mentality, what you're telling me is a majority of the police departments all across are terrible people, which is not the case.
Yeah.
I would not consider
No,
that the
yeah.
case. So the issue is not that. It's the fact there's a lot of issues. The whole system is just not set up correctly. It's not set up for people of color to excel in. We were talking about earlier the time it takes to become a police officer.
Yeah.
I don't think they're vetted the way that they should be. You get these people obviously that have these prejudice and just this hate towards other people for this fact that their skin color is different, and they're able to go out there, walk around with a weapon, and can be in control of your life. That just does not make sense to me.
Well, I think I think racism has what's it called? It's found ways to. It's not necessarily the same as it was hundreds of years ago. You know what I mean? Where you could just proudly walk around and be a fucking racist or a member of the Ku Klux Klan and no one would bother you. You know what I mean? Like if you walked around into certain neighborhoods right now, like protesting, not like protesting that you were a fucking member of the Ku Klux Klan and you wanted to kill and hang whoever, whatever, do whatever to whoever, you get the shit beat out of you. People,
I don't know, man, because I've seen some videos of people that are along the protesters, have their little route that they're going, and I've seen videos of people out there they have their Trump flag out there, and they're kneeling on people's
oh
necks.
no,
Yeah.
I know.
So
I'm saying like certain
well,
neighborhoods.
yeah,
you're
no,
going
for sure.
But what I'm saying is like I think that those people that found it so easy to just go around and be that fucking vile and disgusting publicly had to find ways to do it that worked for them. And I think the thing that worked for them the best was to get into positions of power. You know what I mean? Like things like local government, becoming the mayor of their town or just becoming members of the police department. You know what I mean? Like you find a way to stay in positions of power, And I think that's where the idea of like why we still see to this day so much prejudice towards black people is that racist people and people who have issues with certain specific types and stuff like that they look at like a system like the police department and they say, okay, like I could lord power over someone, the people that I take issue with, I could maintain that power if I joined this group and they accepted me, and then they give me the power that I need to then antagonize that group. You know what I mean? And it's a shame that that's the way that they look at it. And that's just me personally what I think, like why you see so many racist cops and stuff like that is like not that obviously police aren't inherently racist. It's that racist people see that it's a position of power and they want to abuse that. It's the only way they know how to. The only way that they can abuse their power.
Well, I mean, and you see that not just in police. It's any type of job when you get a little bit of power. Not everyone, and that's the thing that what I want to keep going on is not everyone or not every police officer is terrible. Not every police
Yeah, of
officer does
course.
this, but there is times where people they get a little bit of power and it goes straight to their head, and everything that they're for and is exactly what they're pushing. And if it happens to be that they have racist issues towards people and they have this power over them, it's something that they like I said, they control this person's life and there's nothing they could do. And it's set up where those officers that are committing these crimes of murder, if anyone else were to, if I were to go outside and do what what some of these police officers do,
Yeah.
I would be in jail for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
They get a leave of absence and then the pension.
Right, yeah, they're suspended without pay. There's so much of that shit going on where it's like protect them, protect them. We weren't seeing anything happening with them until the riots and the protests really fucking kicked off. When things got really fucking serious because people are fed up. We're fed up with it, but nothing's going to change until these systems change. We can't be so concerned with protecting police to the point where it's literally just corrupt. We cannot be that concerned about it because the human life should be fucking paramount to everything.
It
That should
be.
be the thing that we're the most concerned with. You know what I mean? Making sure that people who abuse their power have to pay for the crimes. Come on. I mean, that's just common knowledge. That should be something that's embedded into the fucking fabric of reality, essentially. Like just a society, really, I should say. The fabric of society.
And the thing is, for most people, it is. But like I said, you get a little bit of power, and you get people that can't oppose your power.
Yeah.
And they get that power becomes abused, and the system, like you're saying, is set up a certain way where they can continuously get away with this thing. It's a habitual thing. We've seen this for years. Like you said earlier, the Rodney King thing. But prior to that, how many other times did stuff like this happen? We didn't have cell phones to record it.
Yeah.
We didn't have video cameras to record it.
I mean, you see all the time, like, cops abusing their power or anybody abusing their power because that's the issue within here, a smaller issue within here that created this bigger problem. You know what I mean? This man lost his life because a police officer abused his power. To say it's racially motivated or not, we don't know. To say it's based on their past, we don't know. We can only say that there is a history of police brutality against black people that has been racially motivated, and in this case, this person did have a past with this man. So people are gonna infer from that he had an issue with him, and it also may have been racial. You know what I mean? And it's never going to change if we don't change the system.
No,
if
100%
there's not
agree on that,
major
man.
reform coming to it, then then what the fuck is the point? Like I talk about we had a small conversation before about like the idea of anarchy, and I said to you right before we started recording that I don't necessarily agree or disagree with anarchy. I can see certain merits from it, but it's not a final solution to anything because it doesn't solve problems. It'll get rid of certain things that aren't working, but then that's where you need to come up with solutions.
No, and like you said, man, and I feel a lot of people agree with this. It's not something you can't just band-aid fix it and do let's fix this part right here, the whole thing from the bottom. You got a broken foundation. You need to get rid of the whole shit and figure something out that's going to work. The thing that I do not like, though, like it doesn't make sense to me in my opinion, the defunding of,
that's what I wanted to talk to you about.
just does not make sense to me.
The thing that pisses me off is the idea of defunding the police. You know what I mean? And I talked to you about this a little bit the other day, where it's just like the same thing as like people have defunded the education system.
Yeah, look
here
how
in
good
America.
that turned out.
Right, exactly. I mean, what are we hoping for? That in the same situation, that like, are the teachers going to care more? Are they going to put any more effort into their job to making sure that these students are educated and protected and nurtured?
More than likely not. I mean, there might be a handful,
right.
But still,
if we're speaking,
ultimately no.
We're speaking about the whole system as a whole. If it's already broken, you're just going to take resources away from it. You're not fixing the problem.
You're making another problem.
Making it worse. So the same problem is going to happen with the police station, because you look at anything, if you work for any corporation or you do any fucking job, when you get money taken away and resources taken away from you attempting to accomplish your job, it just makes it all the more harder, more stressful. The less you want to put in actual effort, and the less you want to work productively.
I mean, it's as simple as this. Okay, you have a job, right? And all you do is, let's just say you clean toilets, right?
Yeah.
You have one job that pays you $7 to do it. You got another job that pays you $15 to do it. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you're going to be doing a better job at the $15 one because you're going to, you got more, more coming towards you, more to lose.
Now, let's say you're working for either one of those jobs, and they fucking cut your resources in half. They cut your pay in half. They cut all that shit in half. How likely are you to show up to fucking work with a smile on your face,
give it the 100%, and do what you're supposed to be doing?
Diligent worker, and get along with your fucking coworkers, and not get into arguments and fights and stuff. Well, I mean, come on, it's not fucking rocket science here. I understand the idea. Take the money away from these people.
I feel like that's more of like we're gonna hurt you by taking away from you kind of a thing, which, like I said, is not the solution. What we need to do,
it's a bigger issue for minority communities.
Yeah,
the idea, because now all the cops is
more
going
pissed
to be
off,
more upset, more overworked, more stressed out. They're gonna have less resources, less employees.
And now they have that's in a sense a target on their back now.
So we'll have people who are even more overworked, more stressed out, more upset, more anxious, more likely to put their fucking hand on their sidearm.
And they still have to do all their same responsibilities.
Yes, exactly. And it's just not gonna iron out the same, because if the responsibilities are the same and the resources are cut in half or even less than that,
the outcome's not going to be the same.
No, it's going to be worse, and it's already bad. It's already bad. And so defunding the police is not a solution.
I don't think so. It's not a viable one. It's
like defunding anything is a fucking solution.
I feel like if anything, we need to, like I was saying earlier, put more into it where you have to go to schooling for this.
Yes.
Where you're not just
total reform.
It really does. And I mean, I personally, we don't know what the answer is, but how to go about doing that. But we do see.
Police school is like what? I think it's like 3 to 4 months, 6 months at the most.
Yeah,
okay?
I'm not sure.
I'm not being specific here. I know
it's not
a couple
very long,
of people
though.
that have talked about going into it. That's it. I don't know any cops personally. I think my uncle was a cop at some point. I don't know. He's an asshole. Nobody talks to him. But I think it's a couple of months for like the whole academy situation. Blah blah blah. And then I think you eventually, like, you get out there after like a couple of months and stuff like that. You're partnered up with somebody, a more seasoned officer or whatever. But that's not nearly enough to be putting this kind of responsibility. Stress,
like I said, you
pressure.
are in charge of. I mean, especially in these big cities, you think there's hundreds of thousands of people, and you have how many cops to the people? It's the ratio is crazy. You have way more people, way more people than you do cops.
Yeah.
So the fact you're going to be stressed already, and if you can't maintain that.
I'm telling you, man.
It's
not a job I would sign up for.
No, and
just solely on that. Not even like the way that people look at police officers, which isn't great, but that's based on, track record. Let's be fair. I mean, they don't generally speak in this sense. I'll be general, because when people generalize police, if you were going to generalize the police, you'd say, yeah, they don't have a great track record. You know what I mean? Like in like an all-encompassing way. Because they do have that mentality of protecting each other at all costs. So it leaves you kind of fucking sitting by the wayside. Like you're just fucking, you're not nearly as important as they are to themselves. You know what I mean? But generally speaking, they have that track record. And I just don't, I wouldn't want to fucking be associated with that. I wouldn't want the responsibility that they have. You know what I mean?
I can imagine the stress, the constant.
I'm anxious as fuck.
Like, right? Just always being just on the edge. Like I personally would be on edge all the time. And so like I'm not the type of person, like you were saying earlier, when those people that say fuck all cops, like come on, like that's just ridiculous. It's not all cops.
But
yes,
it's based on their history with police,
and that's the issue too, is they have these places where they are seeing this more often. Like I personally have never been in an issue with a cop and having any racial thing, but I've only been pulled over a few times. but I'm not African American. I'm not
Yeah,
black.
exactly.
I'm
It's
Hispanic.
different.
It's different.
It is different. I'm not to say that they can't be racist.
No,
towards us,
exactly.
because there's plenty of fucking people. But I think one thing that we have to acknowledge here is that I think every race should be able to come together and say that no matter how much racial inequality we've all experienced, none of it is the same as what black people have experienced.
No, 100%.
It's not the fucking same.
There's layers of it.
Yeah.
And
there's degrees.
deep layers.
There are degrees to it where, like, yeah, some people might be more racist towards, a Mexican person or something like that, or a Puerto Rican person. But I think overall, when we're having a discussion about racism,
You automatically thinks, you're talking about African Americans or
the
black
people
people.
that like historically have had to deal with the most, probably being like black and Jewish people. You know what I mean? Even though Jewish people isn't technically a race, it's a religion, but speaking like in that kind of way. But yeah, I think we have to acknowledge the fact that it's not necessarily the same thing. You know what I mean? Because if we're being honest, every race has, racial problems with other races. You know what I mean? Like, you have, like, even we've talked about within the Hispanic community, like sometimes like a Nicaraguan person will be like, oh, I don't like a fucking Colombian person.
Yeah.
And like stuff like that. This Venezuelan person doesn't like this Mexican person. Like they all have their little problems with each other. And, like Jamaican people and Haitian people, they have problems with each other. There's all kinds of shit like that. But one thing that I think everyone should be able to acknowledge within their own race is that every race, not every person, but every race seems to have had some type of issue with black people, either in the past or currently. You know what I mean? In the Hispanic community, you'll always be able to find one relative at your family reunion you can bring a black friend or a girlfriend or something, and they'll have something to say.
Right. And I think
it'll
also,
be really fucking racist.
I don't know if I'm sure a lot of it is too just generational things too.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
But no, I completely agree with you. I mean, every race has issues. I mean, it's not, I don't even know if it's a race thing. I think it's just a people thing. There's just ignorant people out there.
Yeah. And you can only get it we can only understand so much, you know what I mean? Like, you can only empathize or sympathize so much with a person's,
because I mean,
what somebody goes through.
Exactly. You can't, like I was saying earlier, with our buddy, he is a white male. He doesn't have these same. He doesn't wake up, go to work, and drive in his car worrying, if I get pulled over, am I going to get killed? He doesn't. That thought's probably never crossed his mind.
Yeah.
Whereas if if you're black or Hispanic or something like that, the odds of that happening to you are a lot more, and that's something that you have to think about.
Especially if you fit a specific stereotype or profile.
And that's the thing. I feel like every person fits that description.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Regardless of if they don't or not.
Yeah, it's true. No, for sure. I mean, what's the fucking thing? What was I was going to talk about something, honestly. Wow, we've actually been fucking just like going off.
Also, yeah, we haven't even covered like much of our bullets, and we're just going. And like I said, this is such a major issue. I mean, obviously for a lot of people, but like me personally, like every time my heart beats still hard for it. Like I'm just like so distraught and just sad, and like I just can't believe that this happened. Like it's real, but it's not. You know what I mean? And it's so it's a tragedy, and it just makes me sad that even in our time that this is an issue still, and it's a huge issue, and I feel like we just need to just get like you said, a new system in place, but I just don't see how that's going to go about. I mean,
we literally need to just fucking, this one's not working, right? We all have to agree it doesn't work. Everyone has to agree on that, or at least a large majority of people have to agree. You know what I mean? It's nothing gets done unless the large majority of everyone can agree, So first, a large majority of us have to fucking agree and acknowledge, yes, the system doesn't work. It is not only flawed, it is broken. It's just broken. It's straight up fucking broken. The people who are supposed to be protected by these people aren't. They're just not being protected, specifically these groups specifically. But in general, they're more concerned with protecting themselves than they are with protecting the people that they're supposed to be. So first we have to be able to acknowledge that, you know? And then we have to say, okay, what can we do? All right, let's get rid of the whole fucking thing. Everything? No, not everything.
Well,
We keep the stuff that makes sense.
right. And see, the
But
thing is,
90% of it that's fucked, we get rid of.
I mean, it's look at any type of job. 100 years ago, the jobs that were around 100 years ago, like, you know, the sheriffs and cops and stuff like that, they they evolved, right? They have to. Right now, like, I don't feel like the way that the police system is going right now, it hasn't changed. Look at any other business. You got to keep going with
You innovate with the
yeah,
times.
exactly.
Yeah.
You keep updating,
Modernize.
exactly. This system has been the same for how long?
Yeah.
And there's been the same issue over and over again, and yet nothing has been done.
Well, it's the whole idea of systemic racism, right? You know, like the idea that like the system is in place and it keeps everyone where like it's not the when someone says systemic racism, I want to clarify like exactly my thoughts on this. So when I think about like systemic failures of us in society and the government, the judicial system, all of that, I think of what's it called here? How we, oh my god, I'm like in and out of fucking thoughts right now. Of course, like right when I'm trying to make a specific point, but basically the idea that like certain people were set up with advantages just by the fact that they didn't have to be, you know, they weren't slaves or they weren't second-class citizens and they weren't looked down upon. You know what I mean? And so those people inherently have an advantage because when the slaves were eventually freed, and let's say even later on than that, when they were allowed to like live in residential areas or even live near in certain neighborhoods or something like that, those neighborhoods were then became like secondary neighborhoods, you know, ghettos and stuff like that. And the idea with the way our society is set up it's not specifically set up to keep this specific person of color down. It's set up so that if you're already down, you can't get up. And the way it's set up is that the majority of the people who are down are black and minorities.
No, there was this video I watched, and I've seen this video like a couple years ago, but it came up again just because of everything that's going on with, you know, the racial tension and all that. But it's just a line of, you know, kids, all different colors.
Right.
And there's someone in front of them, and he says, if you have both of your parents still, step 5 feet forward. So a bunch of people step forward. If you have a mom and a dad that both have a job, step forward.
Right.
And the stuff like that. And you could see, you know, that the Hispanic kids, the African Americans kids, they're the ones that are not stepping forward. It's, you know, an exaggeration, but it isn't. You know, it's visually it is, but you know, it is true, and it's like 100% what you're saying. It's not set up the way like, for them to succeed, and they're going to be at the. It's like starting 6 feet under, and someone's up top, and they're just shoveling on top of you.
It's not necessarily that. It's entirely just trying to keep specifically black people or people of color down. If you're already at the ground level, they don't want you to get higher than that.
Right.
So whether you're white, you can be a fucking trailer trash. They don't want you to fucking have a mansion. Nobody wants to see that person succeed or in this system, I mean. Not to say nobody, but like within the system.
We're talking about within the system, yeah.
They don't want to see that person succeed. But the problem is that, so much of those people that are down like that, who don't have those advantages and were left out hanging, are fucking black people and people of color, and it's ridiculous and it's a shame to see.
And that's the issue. That's the big, like you said, that's the main issue right there. That if that never gets changed, all the other stuff that their people are protesting with,
the systems need to be changed.
It's
entirely.
not going to be fixed. It's just a Band-Aid fix.
And it's like what Dave Chappelle said. You know, the only way for the systems to be fixed is that everybody has to admit what role they played in the system. Everyone has to admit it. And we're still trying to get that done today. And until we see that fucking day come, we're not going to see it change. Because people like to bring up this whenever someone talks about systemic racism. And I'm not necessarily talking about systemic racism. I'm talking about a system that has failed systemically for people who are just disenfranchised, who are fucking broke, who are below a certain level of income, who are living in certain circumstances. So if a lot of those people happen to be people of color or black, hey, take it for however you fucking want it, because that is what it is. It is the way it is. So, but what I'm saying is the argument against it is always, well, look at you had a half black president. You had Obama. What about all the rappers and actors who are black or Hispanic or Asian?
But that's such a small percentage, you know what I mean, to begin with.
The way I
that
think
argument
of it,
is
I think of like a fucking wall. Like if there's a brick wall, whatever, some kind of wall. Let's just say that the system itself is the wall. That's the line for when that's the line for basically what tells you whether or not somebody's made it out of that area, right?
Right.
There's some cracks in the wall, and every once in a while some fucking air gets through it. But the majority of the air doesn't. You know what I mean? Like you might feel a breeze when you walk by the wall every once in a while, and you say, oh, a little bit's getting through. And that's not going to justify fucking anything.
No.
That doesn't mean shit. That means nothing. You know what I mean? If a drop of water got through that fucking wall, let's say those are people of color or something that made it. Okay, we had a black president, but we're still dealing with all of these issues right now, racially. So that's not fucking justification.
And
for
to
anything.
be honest with you, like, yes, we had a half black president. Now we have a Cheeto for a president, and I feel definitely the racial tension has gotten worse since then.
Yes, it has. That's for sure.
And it's just, I feel like kind of what you were saying earlier, where I kind of disagreed with you a little bit, where you're saying, not necessarily disagreed with you, but when you're talking about they're not displaying racism as much, or like out publicly, people that, they're not walking around their KKK.
Oh yeah, no, I wasn't saying.
Yeah,
that.
well, I know, yeah.
I was saying, like it's not they're racists aren't necessarily as they're not going out as much being so prideful as they were once.
No, 100%. No, and that's
where
I agreed with. Yeah,
it. They're sneaky.
But I feel definitely now
Sometimes
within the past couple of years, it's gotten where they're not.
They feel emboldened.
Yeah, they're less sneaky about it.
Yeah, they're a little more upfront about it now. It's making a little bit of a runaround.
Exactly.
It's the whole idea of the pendulum. Once it swings one way so far, like it starts to correct itself again eventually.
And it overcorrects.
It always happens. It overcorrects in every single direction, no matter what, and it's always going to be a problem of society because our world that we've created is only as perfect as we are, and we are imperfect.
Exactly.
We're all works in progress. We're never going to be fucking perfect.
But we can definitely get closer to something.
We can always try, and that means that the world will always continue to improve as well. It'll never be perfect. There's always going to be issues, but that isn't reason for why we should just give up and become so stagnant and complacent with how things are and allow them to continue. Things definitely need to change. They have to change for the good of the country, for the good of the world. Things aren't going to get better if they stay the same.
No, they definitely won't. It's crazy, man. It shouldn't have gone like you said. It shouldn't have got to this point where we're out there protesting and doing these things because of this system that's broken. But we have to, because what other way can we get our voices out there? And the people that are, saying, oh, like talking shit basically about the protesters, I'm like, what else?
Right. Well,
like they did it peacefully with, Kaepernick.
The same people who were upset about the Kaepernick situation, that always upset me because.
I mean, what other way? He did it the most peaceful way. He's like, I'm just done.
He respectfully protested in silence against police brutality. I don't know how you can fucking disagree with me. Disagree with me. I'll say it right now. Yeah. Disagree with me. Write in the comments on YouTube, Facebook, whatever. Disagree and explain to me how he was disrespecting anything. Oh, because he didn't stand for the national anthem.
That had nothing, and he's made that a point. That had nothing to do with the military. It had nothing to do with the flag. It had everything to do with the fact of police brutality.
Who was a veteran.
If it offended him.
He asked him for advice.
Oh.
He asked him what he should do, and he told him you should take a knee out of respect. He said take a knee. It's respectful.
Well, even like, okay, so you didn't play football, but I did.
Yeah.
So when there was
You're gonna put me on blast.
I know, when there was like an injury, a major injury during the game, whether it was, no matter what side it was, everyone took a knee.
Yeah.
And until, the
This
EMT or whatever.
There were major
out of
injuries
respect,
to
just
his
like,
community and just in general for the American public. This is a fucking open wound on America, and you're taking a knee out of respect for the people that have to suffer from that. That's what it is. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I hate the fucking people who get offended like it's un-American. Un-American to protest?
It's un-American to believe
It's
that
the most
everyone's
American
life
thing.
should be equal. Like, that's ridiculous.
It's the most fucking American thing. It's a part of being American that you're allowed to fucking protest and speak up against injustice.
You remember that Tea Party?
You should be able to fucking do it regardless of if the anthem's going on. I don't give a fuck if Donald Trump's wife is queefing the national anthem into a microphone. Like, I should be able to stand up, call her a stupid bitch, and then say, fuck this song. Like, are you serious? It's so fucking stupid. Regardless of if you want to do it silently or whatever. However you feel that you can peacefully get the message across and you're not going to harm people.
And that was the thing. He wasn't, though. Like, that was the approach that he did it was the right way. People did not see it that way, which was the
people
issue.
Were like, "Oh, this is not the place for it." What are you talking about? Like, I hate when someone says, "Oh, you're an actor. You shouldn't be championing for this cause. We want you to be in movies."
You're a person.
You're a person. I don't understand where it's like you're a celebrity, so you can no longer have opinions about these things. And then they go, "Okay, well, you can have your opinions, but we don't want to hear about it." And it's like, why do I have to not use my platform that I work to get
to use it any way I
voice
want?
My opinion? It's my opinion still. So you don't have to listen to it. Well, but who are you to tell me that I shouldn't be using it for that? Because it's mine.
Exactly. Well, and there's a handful of celebrities that are just don't give a fuck. Like Seth Rogen. I don't know if you've seen what he's been doing lately. But anyone that's basically saying shit about negative about the protest or negative things about the murder of George Floyd, he's just like, fuck you. Like, he's like, I'm not playing this shit.
I think
like, fuck you.
Totally. That's great.
And he's not doing anything wrong about it.
That.
Yeah, he's just like, you know what? Because like we were talking about, and the ultimate thing that we wanted that we both agree on, and a lot of people agree on, is this was just wrong.
Yeah.
No matter what you boil it down to, a man was murdered. That is wrong.
And the issues need to be rectified.
Exactly.
That's the biggest fucking point about this. A crime was committed. People were
hold that person accountable for that crime.
And so many others have been wronged in the same way. It's raining. But nothing is going to be resolved until everyone can agree upon the really important issues. That brings me back to the whole thing I made about allies. We can all be allies in this if we can all agree what the fucking big problem is and really try to work to solve these issues. And I think it's one of the biggest issues. It's one of the biggest fucking problems that we have, is that aside from the actual issue of this of what's going on, is that we can't all come together to be allies because there are so many people gatekeeping.
No, like
champion for a cause.
It like I was saying, dude, it should not be side versus that side or this party versus this party. It should be wrong versus right, and that's what we need to get to.
Not everything is black and white, but in instances where they are, because it does exist. The world isn't black and white, but that doesn't mean there aren't circumstances that are. And this man was wronged. We know that. That's a fact. He was wronged, regardless of what he did or didn't do. He may or may not have used a fucking counterfeit bill.
No.
There is no justification for him losing his life, especially not in the way that he did. And there's no fucking reason why no one fucking helped him. Not one of those officers. And there's no reason why that man and those other officers shouldn't have to pay the fucking consequences.
No, 100%. They allowed a murder to happen. This is what
we should be able to agree upon, so that we can all become allies and champion for a better future. But it doesn't seem like that's the fucking case, because everyone wants to fucking gatekeep and say, well, you don't agree with every fucking thing, so you can't even speak on this issue, even if what you have to say with I agree. So it's fucking infuriating.
It's so counterproductive. Like you said, we everyone needs to just realize what the main thing is and focus on that and just agree like this is wrong, yes. And then from there, that's where you start tackling everything else. But you can't, like I've been saying multiple times, you can't just Band-Aid fix things and be like, okay, this is a temporary fix, because it's all going to come back. And that's what we've seen multiple times over and over again throughout the years. How many times since I can remember, since I've had like a cell phone, since social media has been around, I've seen every year cops killing, minorities, killing, these innocent people. They're cops. Yes, they arrest people. They do this, but they're not the judge. They're not the executioner. They don't have that power. But unfortunately, they do.
Well, they feel like they do.
Some certain cops
and
do.
The system emboldens them to feel that way because they protect them. So realistically, like, I can understand to a fucking extent why they feel so like untouchable.
Right.
Because it feels like nobody's fucking coming after them because the system is set up to protect them. They protect each other, and that's the way it is. And it's a sham. It's a mirage to think that like these guys are just the champions of our protection. You know what I mean? That it's not the case. If you see injustice, you have to speak up about it. And this is such an injustice. We can't allow the people who are supposed to be upholding the law to get away with it just because of the positions that they hold. Right? Like that's your fucking job. But you're not doing your job, because if you were, you'd cuff yourself because of the fucking thing that you just did. You committed a crime. So if you really were a champion of the fucking law, if you were really all about like holding the law to the highest degree, you'd put a fucking cuff or on your own wrist, sit in the back of a squad car, and get taken to fucking prison.
Well, I mean, you wouldn't even have done that shit at that point. You know what I mean? But yeah, I completely agree with you, man. It's a whole system thing. It needs to be reevaluated. It needs to be looked at from every angle, everything, and see that
Top
there
to
are
bottom,
holes.
Just fucking like tear it down, rebuild anew. Take what worked, keep it. Everything else, trash it. We can do better. So many other countries have figured this shit out. It's a matter that it's just it points out the fact that Americans become so complacent, and the things that they view as like intolerant, and like we're so willing to just allow these things to go on for so long. You know what I mean?
And just kind of sweep it under the rug.
We become complacent with all of them. And like one group can be fucking have their rights taken away from them, stripped away from them, and have to deal with all of these fucking issues. And we go, well, it's not affecting the whole country, so it's not that big of a fucking problem. What the fuck kind of mentality is that? That's ridiculous.
And that's the thing too, especially with this, that it's shown me both that we can come together as a country, but it also shows, like you were saying, where it's not directly affecting me, so I'm not going to worry about that.
Yeah.
But we look at it like we're all different people from, we come from different states, so that's our little clan or whatever. But we're all the same. We're like, ultimately, we're humans, dude.
Yeah.
We shouldn't look past the fact that we're all the same, regardless of what you look like, color-wise, what you talk like, with whatever accent you have. That does not matter.
Yeah, no,
and
for sure.
If it isn't affecting you, and that's what you're saying, it doesn't affect you, you're wrong. It's affecting all of us.
Yeah.
And it's such a terrible thing that happened. It just, like you said, man, we need to get this thing fixed.
Injustice catches up with everybody. Because if you live here, you're a part of the system. And it will eventually catch up with you. Maybe not even ways that you fucking expect. But an unjust system just means that it's not fair. And that fucking spreads. You think it's only with one group or these small groups or this specific
It doesn't
community?
affect you until it does.
It eventually catches up. You can't play a game where like you're playing with all of your friends and one person's cheating this one guy, right? He's cheating against him. He's stealing money from him. He's stealing his points, whatever. You know what I mean? Eventually, there's nothing less to take from him. What happens? They start taking from the other players of the fucking game. That's where it catches up with you. Because you think it's going to just stay in this contained little area where it doesn't affect you. That's not how this shit works, okay? It's going to come for everyone eventually, and we all have to deal with the repercussions of you, your ancestors, and everyone, us, ourselves, not doing anything about it when we should have. And that's the fucking truth. That's the core of the problem.
No, I mean, I completely agree with you, man. I think the protests are, a start to it, but it's not ultimately, nothing will be changed until we say, hey, we are at wrong.
Yeah.
We're doing something wrong. This isn't the way
We
it
turned a
should
blind
be.
eye to it
For way too long. And it's gone to the point where, if it takes everyone having to voice their opinion about it and saying, hey, this is not fucking right, and standing up, then I mean, that's what we have to do. But something has to be done to get it kickstarted, to get people to realize that, that are in control of changing these policies and changing the way the system works, and saying, hey, this is a huge problem. It's a habitual thing. We've seen this for how many years, how many generations.
Yeah.
It's something that needs to be addressed. And if it doesn't get addressed, it's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. And it's going to get to the point where no one feels safe.
Nobody feels safe. Yeah,
and
that's the thing.
And that's not where I don't want to live like that. You know what I mean? And no one should ever live like that.
It's only self-contained for so long. It only applies to one group for so fucking long. It's the same idea of like having a tyrannical leader or king or something like that in ancient times. You know what I mean? They're only going to rule over their land like a fucking dictator for so long. If you give them enough leeway, they will start branching out everywhere else. They'll start trying to take over and own your shit and keep control over you and your people. So fucking shape up. This is not the time for people to be so divided on this. The issue is really fucking plain and simple. It was wrong what happened. It needs to be corrected, and the system needs to be fucking completely abolished, and we need to put a new system in place that doesn't have any of these issues. It won't be perfect. No system's fucking perfect. There's always going to be fucking cracks that people
like
can
your
slip
metaphor
through.
earlier. It's always going to happen.
It's always going to be like
But there's a way to build that foundation to get it stronger so we don't see those happening as often.
We can try. That's the main goal, is that we just have to keep trying and keep getting better. That's the only thing we can try to do. And right now we're not actively trying to make things better. That's the biggest flaw right now.
Nah, man, I would agree.
So, with that being said, guys.
Yeah, I mean, like I've been saying, man, and a lot of people feel the same way about this situation. It's a sad time.
Oh, you know what? We didn't talk about the riots at all, I don't think.
This might have to be a part. Like, we'll do a 2-part if we have to, because I feel there's a lot
quick, 30, 25 minutes for the riots.
Yeah, we can.
And just add it on. We can tag it on.
Yeah, we can definitely do that then.
Okay, guys. So then just stay tuned for that. You want to record it right after this then?
Probably. I'm going to wait on the storm, though, because it's picking it up pretty good.
Okay.
So we'll have to wait on the storm. But yeah, no, like I was saying, it's just it's a sad time for all of us. And what we ultimately are trying to say is, instead of dividing up for the same, we're ultimately all for the same cause, but little things are dividing us up. Yeah, most of us.
Most reasonable, fucking kind-hearted people.
But if you keep doing that, you're pushing people away, and it's making it harder for people to be your allies, to do the right thing. And instead of, saying, because you're not 100% with us on everything I agree, you're not my ally. That's not the case.
Yeah.
We need to realize what we ultimately are trying to conquer.
The greater goal is so much more important than any smaller things that you or someone else may disagree upon. You know what I mean? If you can't 100% agree on everything with somebody, that doesn't mean that you should just tell them that they can't fucking work for a better future with you, because of the main issue that you both hold dear.
It's so counterproductive.
You're not going to accomplish anything, because you're basically just you're lessening the amount of people that can be allies to your cause. You're cutting that number in half, or maybe even more than that. Who knows? You know what I mean? But I know plenty of people who don't agree with every fucking thing in so many movements. But the overall argument of that movement, they do agree with.
Right.
And they want to fucking work with that. And I find myself in that position all the time. I'll say, oh yeah, I'm here to fight for this cause. I want to speak up for this cause. But I don't agree with these smaller little things that here, and here. And then people are just like, whoa.
You're not really for our cause.
Then you're not
really,
Are you fucking kidding me? This is the main issue. Can you fucking, open your eyes? This is what pisses me off. You don't care about the cause if these smaller things are what keep you from allowing people to also help. So I'm going to tell you right now, if that's the type of person you are, then take a good look at yourself, because you really don't care about this issue if that's the way you look at it. If you give a shit, then you need to work with people who also give a shit. Put your differences aside and work to the things that you do agree upon. And then that's it. That's the fucking final thing. That's it. There's nothing more. No ifs, ands, or buts. If you care, then that's it. Shut the fuck up and try and improve. Work with people who also care. That's it. Have a good night. We're done.
All right, guys. Well, we'll continue on this, talk a little bit more about the riots and some of the stuff going on since the murder of George Floyd. We'll attach that either as a part 2 or to this particular episode. We'll let you know via social media.
Yeah.
But as always, we appreciate you listening, and we really hope that you really did listen to this. You know, we had, obviously, it's all opinion based on us, but there's a lot of things that we really do believe and think that, we know a lot of you guys believe the same thing, but we need to just ultimately all come together and tackle that main issue. But
But all right, guys. We appreciate you listening. And kiss your dad for us.